The 2023 college football season is just 12 days away. Hard to believe. And 2 weeks from now, I'll be on here giving week one postmortem, talking about the winners, the losers, teams that are on the rise, teams that may be on the decline, even though it's only week one, a lot can change. All fun things that was on-field action. We finally get to talk about it after the most tumultuous offseason of my lifetime, if not of all time. And I've been around college football and watched it closely since 1985. This topped them all. And I don't use terms like that lightly. I mean, I don't use phrases like that loosely. It really has been a hectic one, between the tragic passing of Mike Leach to the coaching carousel, which saw Deion Sanders get an opportunity at Colorado, and that became a show in amongst itself, along with the other coaching hirings and firings, to conference realignment, which is what we are going to strongly focus on in this video. The landscape of college football is changing, guys. We are in the final year of college football as we know it. Next year, it becomes a whole new ballgame, becomes a whole new sport. One conference is more or less in its final year. This is their swan song season, I believe. Another one could be in big time trouble. We'll discuss that here in this video. It does seem like just yesterday, though, we were talking about the national title game and the playoffs. And I know that's a game TCU fans wish they could burn out of their memory forever. But I'll just say this to you TCU fans listening. Remember what happened to Florida in their first appearance in the Natty. They got walked behind the woodshed by Nebraska. Pretty bad fashion, too. They rebounded from that, and they became a prestigious program, if not a blue blood. I mean, the expectations of Florida football now are at heightened levels that we didn't see before that game. So this is, I think, just the beginning for TCU. They've been on an upward trajectory for the last 20 years, and the fact that they took the next step in year one post Gary Patterson, no less, after forcing Patterson out, they made the national title game, leads me to believe bright times are ahead for TCU. This was just a game that was unfortunate. If you're a TCU fan, it was very disturbing to watch. I'm sure it was very painful to watch, but bright times are ahead for the Horned Frogs. Anyway, let's go ahead and get to the talk about conference realignment. Said at the beginning, one conference is pretty much in its final season. This is taps, call it a wrap. Good night, Irene, whichever phrase you want to use. And that, of course, as everybody knows by now, is the Pac-12. It's been a very tough one for them, and it's been almost a drastic fall from grace. They had an offer on the table last year, as reported by the Monty Show here on Facebook. I advise you check them out. They had a big money offer from ESPN last year that they declined. Wanted more than they thought they were worth. And now the conference is in big time trouble. They've lost a large portion of their schools. I mean, 5, 6 are gone. 6. Let's keep track of it here. USC, UCLA started the festivities. They're bolting for the Big Ten. Shortly thereafter, Oregon and Washington jump ship. They're also going to the Big Ten. The Big 12 got the 4 corner schools: Utah, Arizona State, Arizona, and Colorado. Colorado's headed back after a 12-year shotgun marriage to the Hollywood starlet that suddenly saw her stock take a nosedive. The Buffs decided, you know what, we're better off going back to our high school sweetheart. They're opening the door. They want us back. We're going to go back. They're going to get remarried to the high school sweetheart. So it's got basically at the position where there are 4 schools left standing in a conference. It's Cal, Stanford, Washington State, and Oregon State. That's brutal. That is brutal. So what happens to them? The Monty Show, who I mentioned before, full credit to them, gave a suggestion that they feel the best option may be just joining the Mountain West Conference for 3 years and trying to figure it out. Just sign a short-term deal with the Mountain West. Sign for 3 years and figure it out from there. I think that's the most likely option. I really do. Is it appealing for schools like Stanford or Cal to, Oregon State to be in the Mountain West? Probably not. But at this point, what other options do they have? There is possibilities that the Big 12 could jump in and prod a couple of these teams away. I know there's been some interest in Oregon State. I know that they probably would add one of the Northern California, San Francisco Bay Area schools, Cal or Stanford, if they could, but I don't think Cal and Stanford want to separate. So to me, they may wind up getting Oregon State, and then the other 3 jump to the Mountain West. I don't know. At this point, your guess is as good as mine, and everybody seems to be all over the map. Nobody seems to know what's next. What we do know on record is that the ACC had put a vote up to add 3 schools, that of course being the Northern California Bay Area schools, Cal and Stanford, at the urging of Notre Dame, which is very interesting to me, as well as SMU, who is so desperate and so wanting to get into the big boys club, into cool kids club, if you will, that they were willing to play for several years without any media rights money coming over. They were basically willing to do it there for free. The boosters were going to pay for it and cover the bases to prove their merit, I guess. But they were, up for vote, and 4 teams voted against adding them. That's interesting as well. So we're going to move and talk about the SEC. The Pac-12 may be in danger. I think this is it for them, and it's a shame. It really is, because that conference has so much history, over 105 years of it, and there is still a chance, a very light chance, that maybe they could work together. George Kliavkoff could realize this is his sports legacy on the line. You can't let this conference die. And apparently there is interest from schools in joining. So maybe the 4 schools bond together. They throw an offer to San Diego State. They throw an offer to UNLV, to SMU. The ACC don't want you. We do. Rice has been thrown out there. Tulane, South Florida is a possibility. I mean, maybe they could scrape together 6 schools to make a Pac-10 and keep it going. Boise State, you want to get some prestige, you want to get some name value. Add Boise State, throw them out there, because Boise has been wanting in for a long time, and they've had the door slammed on them. Now they're in a situation where beggars can't be choosers, and frankly, the Pac-12 could do far worse, or the Pac Conference, whatever's left of it, could do far worse than adding Boise State. Actually might add some name value to the conference, because Boise has been legit a real good program for a long, long time. So let's go out and let's add Boise. Let's add UNLV. You get the Utah. You get the Las Vegas market. Let's go ahead and add New Mexico. That's been a name that's mentioned. Let's add Tulane. You get New Orleans. Let's add, SMU. You get Dallas. Add South Florida. You've got yourselves a decent conference there. Is it what it was? Absolutely not. Are they going to take a step back? More likely than not. But at least the conference is alive, and you never know which one of these schools could build on the up and up. But I don't think that's happening. I think they're done. Now, let's talk about the ACC. Interesting, very interesting happenings. The fact that Notre Dame, the most eligible bachelor of them all for a long time now, really pushed for the inclusion of Stanford and Cal into the conference, leads me to believe that they may be finally willing to give up their bachelor days and settle down. Could adding Stanford and Cal have prodded Notre Dame to join as a full-time member in football like they are in basketball and other sports? Makes you say, really does. But it's been voted down. 4 schools are against it, which means it's not going to happen. Ironically, those 4 schools, Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, and North Carolina State. Now, why is that ironic? Let's look back at recent history. There is a precedence that has been set for schools voting against expansion and them schools ultimately leaving. A couple of years ago, the Pac-10, Pac-12, if you will, was talking about expansion. 2 of the loudest, most outspoken schools against it, USC, UCLA. Gone. History. The Big 12 talked expansion. The 2 most outspoken schools against it, you guessed it, Texas and Oklahoma. We've heard many grumblings and rumblings that Florida State is not happy in the ACC. They've gone on public record and have basically stated, we want out of this marriage. We want out. We're done. We want to go elsewhere, which leads me to believe that the SEC's knocking. Notice, the Big 12 has been wild in expansion, okay? The Big 12 has been wild in expansion. Poaching, the 4 corner schools, bringing in the AAC schools. Ever since adding Texas and Oklahoma, the SEC has been very quiet. Almost too quiet, which leads me to believe they've got an ace up their sleeve. I got to believe that Florida State wants out because the SEC wants them. I believe Clemson wants out because the SEC wants them. The difference between Clemson and Florida State is Florida State's going scorched earth. Clemson's being a little more coy about it. They haven't stated it, But believe me, I think if the SECs come knocking, I think they're going to go. I think they want out. North Carolina State leads me to wonder too. Which of these two conferences, which of these two mega conferences is knocking on their door? Are they going to split up? I don't know. Are they going as a package deal? I will tell you right now, people can sit there and talk about North Carolina's football program, and I get it. I really get it. Yeah, they've had a couple of years of success there. Mac Brown's done some good things. Drake May likely going to be a top 3 pick in this year's draft, if not number 1 overall. It wouldn't surprise me. I know Caleb Williams-Manning is it, and he's been linked to be that number 1 overall pick for, 3 years now. But May quickly burst on the scene. He's got a lot of traits. This ain't a draft preview, but I mean, he's got the big body who can run, who can sling it. Wouldn't surprise me. But they also had Mitch Trubisky picked number 1 overall. They've had Mario Williams at NC State picked number 1 overall. So these schools have had some history. North Carolina, though, has had some track record of getting guys picked high. But their big value is in basketball. I mean, whoever gets North Carolina, whether it's the SEC or the Big Ten, I'm not leaning towards the Big Ten here, they're getting a one of the top 3 programs in college basketball, bar none. So things are happening here. Will the ACC have a full-blown collapse like the Pac-12 did? I don't know. I think they're going to be proactive. I think if they do lose these 4 schools and possibly others, because believe me, I don't think Miami's going to sit around and watch. I think Miami will itch their way out. I wouldn't be surprised if Georgia Tech and the Virginia schools start getting a little departure happy, for lack of a better term. The difference is I think that the ACC is more likely to approach it like the Big 12 did. If these schools wind up going on a mass exodus, let's just hypothetically say the Big Ten adds North Carolina. The Big Ten adds Georgia Tech or Miami, hypothetically speaking. The SEC adds, and again, this is hypotheticals here, guys. I'm not saying what I know for certain, but let's say they add Florida State and Clemson. Let's say Miami goes to the Big Ten. Let's just say we get 6 schools that leave. Let's say Virginia Tech goes to the Big Ten or Virginia goes to the Big Ten. I could certainly see them jumping quickly to make something happen. I don't think they're going to sit on their ass and wait for, the demise of the conference. They're not going to wait till the 24th hour like Kliakov did and come with just a completely fucking insulting offer that was frankly embarrassing, that would have basically forced the schools to become more or less timeshare salesmen for Apple TV. I think the ACC would be much more proactive if that does happen. So I don't think the conference is in trouble of being fully demised, but I certainly could see them losing a lot of their schools. Another name I didn't mention is Duke. Football program? No. I mean, let's be frank. Duke football is what Duke football is. But basketball, they bring a lot of value. So could get interesting, but I don't think they'll go tits up like the Pac-12 is probably going to do. I think that you could just see a drastically different looking Pac-12 drastically different ACC when it's all said and done. But again, college football season's upon us. 2 Mondays from now, this time in 2 weeks, we will be talking about the games on the field. Thank God. Thank God. It's going to be an interesting year. We'll talk soon.